Greetings to all true boxing enthusiasts. Earlier this afternoon, I sat down to watch the highly anticipated boxing match between Nikita Tszyu and Michael Zerafa, as it happened live. It was a very strange fight with a very unclear outcome. Officially, the bout was declared a no contest. That is, in the boxing records it says no contest. This literally translates as no result. In other words, it's as if this fight never happened. So, let's try to sort all this out, and I'll also share my impressions with you and draw some conclusions from this bout. First of all, to understand what happened, we need a bit of background. We analyzed this fight in detail on my private Telegram channel, How Nikita Tszyu Fights. There's a lot of talk about Nikita. Well, he also has a brother, Tim, who was a world champion, but right now, his career isn't going so well. So, many people say that Nikita, unlike Tim, he was a better amateur, yes, in amateur boxing. That he's more technical, that he has a better boxing foundation, and supposedly, Nikita has more potential. But yes, I respect any opinion, including that one. But I always trust my own eyes. And first of all, what we see is that in the pros, Nikita takes some really hard shots. In many fights. And today he took some shots too, but we'll get to that later. And he was knocked down against bigs. And even without any knockdowns, especially when the fight starts in the early rounds, Nikita just takes some huge shots. He just does. For now, he's a young guy. Strong, he's 27 years old. For now, he can take them. But if this keeps up, it's basically heading toward an early defeat. That's the first thing. Second, how Nikita Tszyu punches. Again, there are a lot of epithets here, like, wow, he hits super hard. He's a real puncher. Guys, here's the thing. First of all, he's very sticky in his style. That is, in many moments when Nikita throws punches, he kind of pushes them through. Even when Nikita throws short punches, he likes to throw a 1-2 combination. Still, if you judge strictly, you can see some lack of coordination in his body. That is, a punch involves the legs, the torso, and the arms. Simply put, the legs push off, the body starts the movement from the bottom up, the torso rotates, and the arm shoots out. So at least from the outside, it looks like Nikita Tszyu's punch. Well, in any case, it's unpleasant. You definitely don't want to take a punch like that, of course, and he does win by knockout. By the way, he has a very good fight record, there's no question about that, but still, you can see some kind of inconsistency in his punch. It's as if he's hitting purely with physical force, pushing it through, and at the body level, it's about the rotation of the body. In particular, his body seems to rotate not because of muscular effort, but almost in spite of it. Now, here I am criticizing, but in reality, Nikita Tszyu is beating everyone. How is he managing to do that? There are two reasons. First, he has very good physical attributes, meaning that by nature, Nikita might be gifted. It's also clear that he works out, that he spends a lot of time on physical training. And he really is athletic. That's one. Second, he has a strong character. You have to admit it, that's a fact. Nikita, by character, is truly a fighter, an athlete. There's absolutely no doubt about that. So what do we see as a result? Nikita Tszyu's fights, how do they usually play out? Against bigs, against... I don't remember. I recently watched a whole compilation of his fights. I watched 5 of them one after another. Very often in the first round, the second round, and even in the middle rounds of the fight, Nikita loses those rounds quite frequently. That is basically purely from a boxing standpoint. Many of his opponents, even previous ones, generally have better body control. They're faster, their punches are sharper, and they take fewer hits. So Nikita often starts his fights by losing. But then he pulls himself together, both physically and most importantly, and even the physical aspect is debatable. The main thing is his character, his fighting spirit. Basically, he wins in spite of everything. Nikita, he just somehow focuses. He squeezes out everything he has and in short, turns the fight around. But his fights actually start off very tough for him. That's the short version. Now, a few words about Zerafa. So first of all, what's good about him? Yes, many people say that he's experienced. That's true. He has almost 3 times as many fights as Nikita Tszyu, but experience is one thing. There are different kinds of experience. And what's good about Zerafa, unlike Nikita, is that his hands fly. That is, Nikita kind of pushes his punches straight in, but Zerafa throws his punches easily, meaning if we're being strict, Zerafa can also be heavily criticized, including for the way he punches. But he throws punch after punch. His hands really do fly. So he doesn't push them in somehow, but rather he doesn't put in that much effort, but the lightness of his punches is good. That's one of Zerafa's strengths. But he also has his weaknesses. We discussed them in detail in the private channel, and honestly, there are quite a few weaknesses as well. And in boxing terms, this fight is something of a parity. In fact, many people thought before the fight that Zerafa was somewhat better as a boxer. Yes, in some ways he's better, but at the same time, in some aspects, Nikita Tszyu is also better. And from my point of view, at first I thought it was about even, but then I leaned towards Nikita. Again, there are several reasons for that. For example, starting with the fact that the weight class is an intermediate weight. I see it as basically set up for Nikita because, well, although that's debatable too, okay, it's not really Nikita's weight either, but in general, an intermediate weight class and also Nikita's character. He has a strong character in the ring and Zerafa also has character. Before this fight, there were still a lot of questions, but now, what did we actually see? Well, it all starts even before any of the rounds when they were showing the locker rooms. There he is, hitting the pads hard, warming up, walking around. There, the ring announcers were dragging things out a bit, so Nikita walked around and hit the pads again. He was constantly moving, staying loose and working through his routine. As for Zerafa, he was completely calm. He just walked around by himself, threw his hands in the air a bit, then went over to the wall to stretch his tendons and muscles. It looked as if he really wanted to beat Nikita, but in reality, he was just going through the motions. By the way, this fight was for the vacant WBO International middleweight title. Although, in fact, both athletes actually weighed less than the middleweight limit, so they were fighting in an intermediate weight class, right at the upper edge. So, Nikita seemed to have everything going great for him, while Zerafa, before the fight, just seemed kind of indifferent. It was like, well, he had to come out, but he didn't seem very focused, at least before the fight. Then the first round starts in the ring, and here Zerafa really shines. He lands a right on Nikita, several times. He landed a double right hand in a row, and Nikita took the same kind of punch from Biggs before, exactly the same. Only that time, he ended up in a knockdown. This time, there were no knockdowns. Zerafa landed some other shots as well. So, in the first round, Zerafa just looked better. And again, what is the art of boxing? So the art of boxing is to land your punches as powerfully as possible, while at the same time not taking any punches from your opponent. That's what boxing is. That's the technique of boxing, the skill of boxing. When you hit and your opponent can't hit you back, and even in the first round of this fight, Nikita had problems with that. That is, he took a bunch of punches from Zerafa, but didn't really land any himself. That was the first round. Then in the second round, our broadcast conveniently cut off, but I later found the recording and rewatched it. Well, actually not the entire second round, but most of it. And that's when things started to get really interesting. Exactly what we were talking about. The thing is, Nikita often starts off poorly, but then he turns things around thanks to his determination. The fact is, even in the first round, Zerafa tried to wrestle, which is forbidden. He would grab Nikita's arms between his own and hold them tight. So he was trying to hit from a distance and clinch up close. And in the second round, Nikita started to fight back against this. Since the other guy kept clinching, Nikita started to push him away, overpower him, shove him off and land punches. Subtitles by Dima Torzok. They started trading blows. The fight became more intense and scrappy, with some exchanges even getting a bit chaotic at times. And in fact, all of this worked in Nikita's favor. Because he's younger, he can take a punch, he's better. Health-wise, at least outwardly, he seems to be in better athletic shape. He has more character, more physical strength, and most likely, he's got more of everything. And the fight evened out, and not just that. It actually seemed to me that Nikita Tszyu started to take the lead. There was also a head clash. Some say there were even two. I personally only saw one, but they say there was another one right at the start of the round. A head clash. And this is the most interesting part. Zerafa I can't quite remember which eye, but it was the left one. Yes, that's right. So he ended up with what looked like a cut there, but he could still see, and there was no bleeding or anything. And then, for the first time at the end of the round, or maybe for the first time in general, the doctor comes over to check on him to see if everything's okay and covers his other eye. Well, that's classic in boxing. Athletes are just so motivated. If you ask him directly, like, can you see? Even if he can't see anything at all, he'll say, yeah, I can see. I see the opponent. I'm ready to fight. That's why they always ask, what do you see? Can you see? Tell me, what do you see? So the doctor covers his good eye, and with the injured cut eye asks, can you see? And Zerafa answers, I can't see. Which translates as, I can't see. In Russian, it sounds dramatic, like I can't see, as if something terrible has happened. That's just how it's phrased for them. In Russian, it basically translates to, I don't see. So simply put, he himself said, I don't see. And the doctor looked, thought for a moment, and then the word stop was said. Like, stop fighting or something like that. Stop, stop. That's it, the fight is over. Nikita is surprised, and so is Zerafa surprised as well. And after that, the crowd starts yelling. Nedobojati makes a gesture with his hands, showing something, and someone even throws something into the ring. So it was really like, you know, like when you disturb a hornet's nest, they were really, really upset, just buzzing with anger. And then they asked Zerafa again, but basically by that point, the fight had already been stopped and everything was decided. And he says, no, I want to continue. I can see, I'm fine. They ask him, but didn't you say you couldn't see? So it turns into a kind of murky situation. Now, the decision, well, sometimes it happens that you can't do something. Like you can't see, hear, walk, move around, or box, so naturally you lose. But that's only if it happened because of the punches. When it happens due to a head clash, then, as per the new contest rules, if many rounds have already been fought, again, it depends on the organization. In this case, it was the WBO. I don't know what their rules are. But generally, if, say, half the fight has passed, then usually, yes, the bout is stopped, but they go to the scorecards to decide who won and who lost. And when the fight is really short, just 2 rounds, there's really nothing to score. That is, one person won, the other lost, but maybe the second was just feeling things out. So it's all kind of conditional. That's why the fight is stopped and the points aren't counted. I mean, they're almost, well, anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. So it's just a no contest. So that's the strange situation that happened. Now let's look at what all this means. First of all, well, honestly, the first thought that came to mind was that this all looks really shady. I mean, not being able to see because of a cut. It's kind of nonsense. First of all, it wasn't like blood was pouring into his eyes. The cut was really there, including above the eye, but his face was clean. Zerafa's face, that's one. And in the moment, it seemed like something was off. I mean, he's giving up, saying that he can't see out of his eye. Guys, in the UFC, let's say there are eye pokes, or even in boxing, you can accidentally get hit in the eye with a finger. And that's one thing, or getting hit in the eye with an elbow, something sharp, something penetrating. But with a headbutt, when heads collide, you can't actually get inside the eye, because the eye itself, it's in the eye socket, it's set in a recess. It's not like a lizard's eye sticking out, it's inside our eye socket. You can break everything around the eye, but the eye itself will basically stay intact. So, something about it just seems strange. And the thought crossed my mind, could this be some kind of setup? I thought about it carefully. Well, could it be that they're dragging this out? For Nikita Tszyu, like maybe he became champ there and then the other guy started winning and maybe someone whispered to him like, dude, no, that's nonsense. First of all, because it's a no contest. Well, first of all, why complicate things at all? Secondly, it's a no contest. That is, there was no fight. Both boxers are at a huge loss. The title was vacant. Zerafa didn't keep the title because he didn't have it in the first place. A vacant title. Accordingly, Nikita didn't win the title. So everyone is at a loss. That is, there can't be any collusion here. Second point. Could it be that Zerafa acted suspiciously in some way? It could be anything, starting with the possibility that he bet on Tim at the bookmakers. And by the way, the odds were changing. At first, in fact, Zerafa was the bookmakers' favorite in this fight. Zerafa was the slight favorite. Then heavy betting shifted to Nikita, with very strong support for him. So people really believed in Nikita's victory. That's actually pretty strange. In principle, that's already a sign of some odd behavior in the boxing community before the fight. But you see, it's still a no contest. I mean, if he had lost and they gave the win to Nikita, that's one thing. You could say it was on purpose, some kind of shady story. But here, it's a no contest. So it's not beneficial for either Zerafa or Nikita. Everyone loses. Not just us as viewers, but the boxers too. Guys, what are we even talking about? The title slipped past both of them. It was a vacant title. It would have gone to someone. This is really bad for both of them. It's just terrible. Nothing good about it. That's it. Now, the most important thing. Now I'm going to tell you something you probably don't expect to hear. What was going on with Zerafa? It all seemed pretty strange. Especially the part where he said at the beginning that he couldn't see anything. But then in the interview he was like, no, it's all good, I'm fine, I'm ready to go anywhere, I want to keep fighting. He also said that the referee didn't ask him if he wanted to continue. Well, actually the doctor. So in theory he should have asked, do you want to continue? Like, are you ready to go on? But instead he just said, no, stop, that's it. Zerafa was upset about that too. So anyway, from a medical point of view, I did some digging thoroughly. Let me say right away, guys, we're not doctors, but all these neural networks, they're actually pretty good at suggesting medical diagnoses. And I asked one of them directly, I asked one of the neural networks, if boxers clash heads, what are the chances that one of them will lose vision in one eye right at that moment, instantly? And here's what it told me. First of all, it said that a retinal detachment can occur in just one eye, and that it can happen quite easily. And the person might see flashes, darkness in the eye, or partially some spots. The vision becomes unusable. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is something called, let me check my notes, indirect traumatic optic neuropathy. Basically, the idea is that a shockwave can travel through the optic nerve canal. This causes swelling and hemorrhaging at the moment when the blood supply is disrupted. And this can lead to sudden loss of vision. Sometimes it can last for minutes or hours, it might come back quickly, or it might not return quickly, it can happen immediately or later on. So guys, what does this mean for us? The situation is really unclear. Anything is possible here, including the nature of the injury. By the way, we discussed his character before the fight. I mentioned that. Well, I don't want to say here on YouTube what I said before. Anyway, I did say something. Yes, I don't know. To me, Zerafa doesn't look like a fighter. He has boxing skills, but he just doesn't seem like someone who will go all the way. I'm saying he just doesn't look like it in real life. Maybe he's actually a hero for all I know. I'm just expressing my opinion from the outside, how I see it, and that's just one more point to add. A strong blow can cause something like a retinal detachment, but that's a really bad outcome. If that's the case, God forbid, it's really very bad for your health, and for your vision it carries the risk of vision loss, which can't be restored. And here's the second option. So, about this thing with the canal, with the bruising in the canal, how long does it last? When will it go away? Yeah, something like that. So it's possible, and sometimes it really is just a bruise, and it can be psychological too. Sometimes the pain is just psychological. These kinds of problems, these things, there's a mix of reality, psychology, and perception involved. So for some people, that's it, it's over. It's completely damaged there. But it will keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. He'll even go home, celebrate, and only then realize that, and someone else, even if it's just a little, already feels like, oh, that's it, I can't go on anymore, I can't see or hear anything. And let's remember, there was a case like that too. That was Daniel Dubois. In his case, his eye socket was actually broken. And by the way, when the eye socket is broken, that's exactly the kind of situation where a person can lose their vision. That's exactly some kind of optical neuropathy or something like that. Well, we're not doctors, so we won't analyze it in detail here. But note that Daniel Dubois is exactly the kind of boxer who has psychological issues. He's the one who takes a knee and is psychologically weaker. So he's very strong, a colossus, but psychologically he's vulnerable, easily hurt. In both cases, the situation is similar. He also had an incident with his eye. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. So Michael Zerafa most likely isn't faking it. Most likely in that moment he really did lose vision in one eye, and then maybe his sight came back. But the truth is probably somewhere in between. So there's this something to do with the nerve, right? And for him, this psychology that he's kind of, well, not a super fighter, right? That could have also made his perception of what was happening worse. And absolutely sincerely, that's how he feels it. Yeah, that's how it is. So what have we ended up with? What we got was a no contest, no fight. Yes, it's quite unfortunate. There are no questions for Nikita here. Honestly, I don't share that view. The general admiration about his prospects, that he's such a super boxer, that he's better than his brother. To be honest, I see it the other way around. But he did great in this fight. He went out there and did his job. What questions could there be for him? He went out, boxed, well, they clashed heads, so what? The other guy was breaking the rules too. He kept hitting, clinching, and pushing in. Well, sometimes that happens, they clashed heads, what can you do? So these aren't questions for Nikita, these are questions for Zerafa. Another thing I wanted to say is that I spent almost the whole video criticizing Nikita Tszyu, and I forgot to mention something good. So I said that his punches are sluggish, that his body is kind of awkward. Well, his movements aren't coordinated for punching, but actually that's not always the case. For example, take his last fight with Lozin and Smiley. In that fight, Nikita Tszyu wasn't sluggish. On the contrary, he was sharp. Honestly, I wanted to say this at the very beginning. I mean, he was really precise. Everything was sharp and fast. Again, Nikita Tszyu is 27 now. He's training hard, he's developing, and we'll wait and watch. So anything is possible. And there is some inconsistency, some unevenness. Not every fight Nikita has is like that, where he wins purely on character. Again, I don't want to say it's good or bad. He wins. And he wins by stoppage too. And we will hope with you that Nikita Tszyu will develop towards a sharper, faster, more technical boxing style, and not a sluggish and scrappy one that relies purely on character. He wins, not so much thanks to, but rather in spite of, relying on his strength of character. I would like it to be different, because with this approach, it's like climbing a mountain. Maybe the person is a professional. He has special technique, he's trained, he does everything the right way. Or maybe he's just a Highlander saying, I'll go up higher and higher. He has nothing, no oxygen mask, no backpack. Obviously, at some point, he'll either freeze or fall off a steep cliff. You can do that at the foot of the mountain, but if you try to reach the very top, it'll only end in tragedy. So I wish Nikita all the best and hope that he keeps moving forward and developing into a good technical boxer. I hope that's exactly what will happen. Those are my thoughts, guys. As always, I encourage you to subscribe to my private channel where I post content, fight predictions, and lots of other interesting stuff. There is also a dedicated and separate sports betting section, plus all sorts of attractive bonuses, special promotions, and exclusive perks. I will provide everyone with a direct access link and a QR code. And you can see that the link is also clearly displayed on the screen right below this video player. Wishing you all the best. See you next time, turning off the camera.